Welcome to Shining a Light on Small Business, where we share real conversations with the people building and growing small businesses every day. I'm Kelly, and in each episode, I sit down with business owners and industry experts to talk honestly about what's working, what they've learned, and the realities of running a business. If you enjoy these conversations, be sure to follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, and listen on your favorite podcast platform, then share this episode with a fellow small business owner. And if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, email me at kelly@createwithima.com. Let's get into today's conversation. Podcast platforms. So we're starting off today with the title called Boss Bitches, because we're all women business owners. And on top of that, Jenny and Beth and I do another podcast for the veterinary vertical called the Unfiltered Vet Discussions. So we know each other really well. And we've had lots of conversations, and we tend to dive kind of underneath the surface. We're real people who have real problems, who have real stories, and still get up every day and make it through. It may require a copious amount of our favorite things like tea and chocolate for me, but we get there.
You don't want to know what's in this. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so boss bitches, checking out the dog who is, baby in things that they shouldn't be in. That's part of being a boss bitch. You never know what's going to hit your plate every single day, right?
Sure.
So I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves. So for people who don't know me, I'm Kelly, and I'm the owner of the Luminary Marketing Agency. Jenny, tell us about you.
My name is Jenny George, and I don't normally sound this deep and raspy, but I am getting over a cold. I am a certified veterinary practice manager, and I have co-owned our veterinary practice. We started it in 2007 we had an infant at the time. And so my husband and I have co-owned, so we're just about to go into 18 years. Is that right? 20 years. What year is it? 19
It'll
years.
Be 19.
19.
Right?
Whoa.
Take the oldest kid and figure it out.
Right. I was
Like,
wait, how old is she now? And I'm like, is she really going to be 19 in March? But yes, so that's how long that we have kind of owned our own practice. And he gets to be the medical director, and I get to be the boss ass bitch, is really what my team has called me in a very loving manner.
Right. And I also want to tag on. I'm also the owner of Beyond Indigo Pets, which does marketing on the veterinary vertical, which is how I met you ladies, right?
Right.
So Beth, you too are a boss bitch.
I am. So my name is Dr. Beth Mahaffey. I'm a veterinarian, and I own my own practice called Penridge Animal Hospital in the suburbs of Philly. I am a partner. I also have a counterpart who is another boss bitch. The two of us started the practice together in 2013. So we are going on 13 years, I think. And we have grown the practice from just the two of us to 7 doctors, 50 staff members. Very big, very much fun and challenging. But yes,
it's one word, fun. There's a lot of layers to that.
So many opportunities when you own your own business. That's what I like to say.
So exciting. And I think your ladies' stories, like all of us have our startup stories, right? Because I think a lot of people listening to us, it's easy to look at the three of us and go, oh, well, they've done it, they've made, I can't do what they do. Like a lot of negative self-talk, right?
They're so lucky. That's something that I hear. Oh, you're so lucky. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
You have no idea.
I'm like, yes, I am.
And right.
We work our asses off.
Yes.
Right. And
very true.
Like, I have multiple businesses, not just these 2 marketing businesses. I'm an entrepreneur.
God bless, Kelly. That's all I can say.
But I can't stop creating. Like, it's just like it just stems out of me. Like my latest is a nonprofit, which is a whole new thing that I had to learn because it's different paperwork. Do you file taxes? Do you not file taxes? Like, yada, yada. It's just a new beast. And I'm like Googling and trying to figure it out. Anyway, I started all this journey in 1997. literally when HTML was getting started with an HTML book propped up next to my computer, page 1, type in this code. Page 2, type in this code. Because I had been trained at American Online University, which was a thing. Tons of fun ladies back in the day. Everybody was under 30 and it was the wild, wild west. And you got to see underneath the hood of all the crazy shit behavior people did on AOL. And everybody would be like, oh my God, this screen name just did this. Can you believe it? Right? It was
Oh my.
because there was no privacy information back there. Like nobody like locked it down. Like they went like wildfire through the company. So anyway, but we started with a passion. We started because we're maybe too damn stubborn to give up. Right. And I had many days where I sat in the bathtub and cried, got out. Well, it's my place. Like, you know,
100%.
and it was one of the small bathtubs too, you know, where you could have, like, if you put your feet up the wall, you could put the upper part of your body down if you filled it all the way up to the top and didn't splash too much.
Oh,
Or
God.
if your lower half got cold, you shifted the other way up. You know what I'm
And
talking
no matter
about?
what, your knees were always cold because you could
Yeah.
never get that.
Yeah, it's not
Never
deep enough,
get,
man.
you know what
Your
I'm
knees-
talking about, right? So the whole bath thing was an art into of itself. But, you know, then I'd get up, get dressed, make some, well, I could drink coffee back then, but coffee and tea or some hot beverage. You're like, I've got this. I can do this.
Yeah. I think one of the things that people like make the mistake of is looking at the whole picture of starting a business and being so overwhelmed by it that they just negative self-talk themselves out of trying. Like, I think the vast majority of people who put themselves out there and try really do make it. If you're just willing to put the effort in and willing to know that the beginning is not glamorous. Like, it's
No.
hard work, it's invisible work that you are up late, you're spending your nights, your weekends, you're not taking vacations. Like, and that's not everybody's startup story, but that's a lot of them. And because it's you're making the sacrifice in the beginning to do something that you believe in, that gives you purpose, that makes you feel alive, with the long-term goal of it getting to the point where it's more balanced. Like in the beginning, it's just not going to be. Like my business partner and I, when we started our practice, and I'll give you like the Cliff Notes version, but we essentially were working for another practice who said they were going to sell to us, decided to sell it to a corporation kind of behind our back. But we saw the writing on the wall. So we started the process of starting our own practice. So when they presented us with, you have to sign on with the corporation or you don't have a job, we basically both like suddenly didn't have a job. So we launched a Facebook page and started a mobile business and saw one appointment that day and like literally had nothing. Like we went to Walmart and bought, you know, those like waitress carbon copy things
Yeah.
where they would like write your
Yeah.
order. Those
Yeah.
were those were our bills. We had nothing. Like
We
I
called those
cannot.
our dinosaur slips because that's what we used to
Yes.
use for our receipts and like your
Yes.
medical right. Yes. Oh,
Yes. Like when I say I had nothing when I started, I literally had myself and my stethoscope and my business partner and like a dream. Like we had nothing and it was sudden and we just did it. And then we just reached out to a rep that we knew, set up an account, started ordering meds, reached out to IDEX, had an IDEX box in my driveway for a while for blood pickups because
yes.
we didn't have a physical location. Our physical location was my home. And so from there, it grew. We bought our parents' minivan, then we had a car. We added a phone line. Now we had a phone number, and we just slowly layered in stuff. And it was just the two of us in the beginning because we couldn't afford to hire anybody. We couldn't even pay ourselves. Like literally, we were using our own money to buy our supplies and both still working. Like we worked two other jobs. I got high volume trained and was doing high volume spay neuter 3 days a week. And we would just answer the phone in between stuff and go and play tech for the other one. Like literally in the beginning, we had nothing. Like our startup story is a little bit wild. Like I think if you have a bit more of a plan and like get yourself a little more set up and maybe have like the finances like before you start, probably it'd be better. But honestly, in our situation, like I feel like that's part of what made us so successful. Because from the very beginning, like our clients are like, you guys are just so genuine. Because there was nothing. We had nothing. I'd call
Right.
people and be like, where do you live? Because I have a non-compete and I can't come to your house in like this radius from the place I used to live. So like I had a guy come to my house and I did an enema on his cat on my dining room table because I was like, I can't come to your house legally, but like I'm happy to help you if you don't mind bringing your cat here. And my husband's like, what is happening right now? I'm like, can you hand me that towel? This cat's gonna shit everywhere.
You're like, trust me, babe, you don't want to know what's happening at
Yes, if
all.
you just go.
Walk away.
But
But hand
anyway,
me the towel on your way out, but just walk
yeah.
away.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I have like a ton more stories about like the wildness that was the very beginning of my business, but that's like the gist of it that I think sometimes you just have to take the leap and
Yes.
figure it out as you go.
Yes.
I think the other issue, and I've done a lot of studying on this because we are all women. And I think, when you look at entrepreneurship, it still is more men than women. In our industry, in the veterinary industry, it's far more predominant in the industry itself to have more women techs, more women vets, more women CSRs. Like it's just a very female predominant industry. And yet there's still more male business owners. And it's really interesting because I'm going to get really nerdy here for just a minute. But as women, we are taught from a very, very like infancy to be still and be quiet. When they've done studies on how we hold female and male babies are held close to us, are kept still. We talk quieter to them, whisper. Male babies are rocked around and moved and all of this. Move forward to preschool. Little preschool boys are running around and they're just being boys, right? They're just being curious, they're just being boys. Girls are applauded for sitting quietly in the circle time and not saying anything or raising their hand and waiting to be called on. Fast forward to elementary school, it just keeps piling on these little things. And you fast forward to elementary school, and still, again, boys are louder in class. They, boys will be boys, they're a little bit more disruptive. They're more likely to be diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, whereas girls are not. And I can say this, I have a boy and a girl, both have ADD. Well, my son has ADD. My daughter has ADHD, which is opposite. Normally boys have ADHD. They're bouncing off the walls. And girls usually have the quieter version of it, which is why they went undiagnosed for a very long time. And I can tell you that my daughter is like, she barely needs sleep. I don't know. She calls her ADHD her natural caffeine because her energy level is like up here all the time. But anyways, boys, girls, again, are just expected to kind of be quiet. And what ends up happening is we get anxious. We get kind of imposter syndrome that, yes, we know the answer, but we're not 110% sure that we know the answer. So we're not going to raise our hand. And boys will just raise their hand and say something stupid that isn't even close to the answer because it's going to make their friends laugh, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward to high school. Who asks who out on dates? Boys. Throughout this whole time, the boys are taught to be risk takers. Males are taught to be risk takers. They're taught that they are going to fail, and that's okay, right? You're going to ask a girl out. They're not all going to say yes. There's a good portion of them that are going to say no. That's okay. You just move on, find another, find somebody else, ask them out, give it a try. Just keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. Girls are taught, that failure is devastating, catastrophic even. It gets to the point where your anxiety is so high that if I answer this question wrong, the whole school is going to implode, right? It translates to, as we get to become adults in a boardroom setting, if your boss says, hey, I want you to pitch an idea, a female is far less likely to pitch an idea unless they have 100% of the plan. Plus they've thought about, well, what happens if this goes wrong? What happens if this goes wrong? What happens if this goes wrong? And I don't know all of the variables, so I'm just not going to say anything. and a male, and these are all generalizations. I am not by any means saying that this is across the board
Right.
how it goes, right?
Right.
But males are more likely, like, they got 45% of an idea and they're like, yeah, okay, I'll pitch it. And their male boss is like, yeah, sure, let's just see what happens. So, what happens if us as females say, let's see what happens? Let's try it and see what happens. And, I think that fear has to be overcome because, right, Beth, you're doing an enema on your kitchen table.
Yeah.
I'm not. Okay, we set up a card table and we put a fleece over top of it. Like, we pushed all of our boxes to the side of the room. I will say that I never allowed my husband to do a procedure on our kitchen table because we're going to eat there. But
Right.
we did have a card table that we set up and we were like, okay, this is our, come on into our office, our living room, onto our card table with our fleece, our clean fleece blanket, over top of it. And yes, tell us what's wrong with your pet.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about startup stories, right, ours was a little different in that there was a non-compete, but it wasn't a non-compete with the new owner. Our practice had gone under new ownership, private to private. And we had a non-compete with the previous owner, but but my husband never re-signed one with the new owner. But we didn't know where that was going to go. So here we were, brand new baby, house, everything's good. We have a great job. And then we get pregnant and we were like, nobody at our practice had kids. And so it kind of went downhill. But long story short, we ended up in a lawsuit with our previous employer because the bank said, wait, you just said the word non-compete. Like, we're going to back up. And we're like, no, but it's not a non-compete with her. It's a non-compete with the previous owner. Didn't matter. The bank was not going to loan us any money and everything came to a halt. So we had an answering machine set up in the corner that, because we had no phones, we had no nothing. We had a big hole in our wall with like a tarp over it and an answering machine in the corner because everything came to a halt. And we're like, okay, well, I'm going to go sit on the floor and check the answering machine and see if anybody called because everything just stopped. And we ended up, same thing. There were like 6 months that we couldn't contact certain people, whatever. But the people that we could see, yeah, it wasn't pretty. It was ugly. We were on a coffee table, on a fold up card table. We had a technician that we paid pennies who lived with us and we fed her, because we couldn't afford to pay her. And these are the stories that you don't hear and you don't see because we just keep moving forward, right? Like, we don't live in those days. We don't live in the days when it was so hard, when I named my ulcer because I was so freaked out. We were painting and staining everything in our house. I can't believe that my oldest child doesn't have brain damage from all of the stain that we did, on all of the paneling in our house as she's crawling around. We don't live in that time period. We move forward. So you don't hear about all of those stories, but when you want to get started, you want it to be perfect right away. And it's not ever gonna be.
No.
So that was, sorry, I just like took over for a second there, but I wanted to talk about why it's so important for females to talk about being bosses because you can do it too.
And the stories matter. Like, okay. So on our other podcast, or if you're listening to this podcast, because we're getting confused on this, because we're using this podcast in two places, just so everybody knows if we're like mess it up. But in our history, us three ladies love James Herriot.
Yes.
And James Herriot, if you haven't read him, is a veterinarian over in Scotland, I believe, or is it Wales? I always get those two.
I think it's Wales.
Yeah,
Wales.
I think it's Wales too.
Right before, 1920s, 1930s, 1940, like somewhere in there. He went and talked about getting started as a veterinarian, and he was very real about what they didn't have and what they did have. But what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is the story matters, which is why we like trying to tell the story, right? For people And I don't hear enough startup stories. I really don't. We ladies talk about it all the time because we're friends. And so we're like, hey, what about this? What about that? And we have trust built up, which is also important for women, is trust, because we know, I know you other two have my back. You're not going to come around and take me out because ladies aren't always playing nice. Like guys are a lot more straightforward, right? But ladies, we have a lot of sneaky shit in our toolbox, right? If we want to
True.
use it, right?
We're trained in that too, but we won't get into it
We
here.
won't get into the sneaky shit stuff. But the story matters. And I think it helps inspire people and lets them know that they are okay. Like, if, you know, one of my many hats I wear is I started a farmer's market here in my town because we had no retail space for businesses. And one of the things that I do is help inspire the vendors who tend to be mostly ladies. There's a few guys in there, a few, to be like, just try it. Like the entry is $30, people in a tent and whatever you're making. It's low risk, right? Like it's a great way to see if your passion for sewing purses and has a thing. Like if like let's go try the thing, right? Or if you really like making wooden cutting boards and you're good at it, and I have a couple of ladies who do that,
That's
Mhm.
so cool.
it's so cool. And I just sit there and look at them, go, I do not need another cutting board. I do not need another cutting board, but they're
And you
beautiful.
buy it anyways?
Anyway, right? You're like, but it's just that if you need to figure out if this is for you, you don't necessarily need to go whole hog like us ladies did, right? With our businesses.
Right.
You can start at a farmer's market if you're making something to sell. You can even start at a farmer's market if you have a service. I've encouraged, like in my last holiday market I did, there was a cleaner who said, would it work for me? And I said, the narrative has to be right. Like get your house clean for the holidays or give a gift certificate for the holidays. Like the narrative, the story has to be there, right? For the marketing. The lady sold out.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
She goes, I sold more than I could possibly do in December, but I hope they don't all call. And I'm like, but again, she bought a table. Well, this time we were indoors this time, so it was $50 and a table and some brochures. And she got her business boosted, like her cleaning business, right? So it doesn't mean you have to go find a loan. You don't have to find a banker. You don't have to go find a brick and mortar business.
Right.
Like, and especially today's internet, if you make stuff, if you don't want, if you're not the farmer's market type, go on Etsy, right? Like there's different places to get your toe into the waters, right?
I think part of the reason you don't hear a lot of startup stories is because we don't want to admit to all the mistakes we made at the beginning.
Eh.
Like, Beth, what's the biggest mistake? Come on, like, let's be real here and make sure,
Uh,
because I think that's the problem is, you know, when I said, oh, people say, oh, you're so lucky, right? Because
yeah.
they see you, they don't, it's the whole iceberg thing, right? Like, you just see the little
Yeah.
bit at the top and not the whole thing at the bottom. You don't see all of the screw ups. And I mean, the screw ups are so many,
Yeah.
so many. Beth is like, I don't want to relive those. No.
I'm trying to think what would be my biggest one. Oh my God. I don't know if we ever had any like horrible glaring problems, but there was like a lot of like learning moments that I'm like, I would handle that differently. Like the way that I lead now is very different from how I led in the
Mhm.
beginning because I didn't know how to lead properly. And so I feel like that has been like a huge learning curve for me because in the beginning, like none of us have a lot of training in like
No.
Oh,
how to encourage people, how to give feedback, how to even write job descriptions. Like we were just making all of that up in the beginning because we had no idea. I mean, I think one of the hardest lessons I probably learned early on in the business was that when someone becomes toxic, you must take action. And
Absolutely.
that was hard to do in the beginning because there were like a handful of people that literally helped us start our practice that volunteered. But there was one of them that became very toxic and very negative, and making the decision and carrying through on getting rid of her, terminating her, was really, really hard. And we drug our feet and didn't do it for so long beyond when we should have done it. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets. And even now, like the way we handled it, like I would have handled it way better now.
Mhm.
Because back then we were so afraid. Like she was kind of reactive. So we were like so afraid to be honest with her up until we got up the gumption to like tell her this isn't working. So she was like blindsided. She still hates me. It's been
Oh, I'm
like
sure.
7 years and she still posts stuff on Facebook about how terrible of a human I am because I was finally the one to stand up to her. So she just has like channeled that anger into me that like that's probably one of my biggest regrets because I honestly think we failed her by not being honest sooner
Mhm.
and by not trying to coach her sooner and by letting it get to the point where it was just so toxic for everyone that she had to go. And I think ultimately she's better off, but she, just has a lot of anger and hatred that makes me feel bad about how it went down. And that has never happened again because that was a very, very hard lesson that we learned a very hard way. And I took from that clear is kind. It is always so much better to be clear and be honest, even if those conversations are hard or you have to be vulnerable about things that are hard to talk about. But in the end of the day, it is always better to be honest than to try to just keep zhuzhing over hard conversations until you get to a breaking point. That's probably one of my toughest lessons for
That
sure.
is that I'm not gonna lie, I still have a hard time with that. I still
Oh,
do because
same,
I
same.
try, I can redeem anybody, right?
Yes,
Like I'm like, oh, well, they're just going through this, or oh, I know what's going on in their personal life.
I
Oh, and
know.
I make excuses, and I'm like, oh my God, Jenny, just rip the band-aid off. But it's awful. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about being a boss
Yeah,
is that you have to have the guts to have the hard conversations.
yes.
And we aren't taught how to do that. We aren't taught how to communicate at all in general, right? And I think that we aren't taught how to communicate face to face. We aren't taught how to give bad news, which is interesting because as a veterinarian, you
Yeah,
have to give bad news on a regular basis to
yeah,
clients. Like that's
Yeah.
my husband's least favorite thing is when somebody comes in and they're like, "Oh, Fluffy's just not eating." And then you find the huge tumor
yeah.
and you're like, "Yeah, Fluffy needs to go to heaven like now."
Mhm.
And it's this horrible and these people are like, "Wait, no, I just give me a pill." So in the veterinary field, we deliver bad news regularly. Unfortunately, that's part of our job. But to have hard conversations with each other, God, there's no training for that. And you can go to all the talks. You can go to all do all the disc profiling and the Myers-Briggs but you have to study communication and you have to work at it and you have to know that it's going to be a work in progress and you're not going to be perfect at first
And you're gonna
because
totally fail.
oh,
Like,
so
and be
100%.
like, there's been so many conversations that I've left and I've been like, that could have gone better.
Right? And I
You're
think I have
crying in the
two
bathtub. You're crying in the
crying in the
bathtub.
bathtub where you don't fit at all.
Right.
So I have two things to add to this, if I can remember both things, or it may turn into one thing because that's the way it goes. It's failure and truth. So I'm just going to put the two things out there so I don't forget. I think one of the hardest things that I had to learn, like you two ladies did, before I could even have the conversations. So I'm like stepping up to the prereq class to conversations was knowing my own truth and living by my truth and knowing that my truth mattered. And I own the company. So yes, it did matter, right? Like I'm the one who's assuming all the risk. I'm the one who's doing all these things. I'm the one at the end of the day, the buck stops here, regardless if it was my fault or not. Because, when you own a business, an employee may do something, but the client's still going to look at you like, right? Like fill in the blank. How are you going to handle it?
Right.
Because we all have problems, but how the problem is handled is almost more important than the actual problem, right? It's that communication and things like that. But if I'm not solid in myself, and it took me years and years and years and years and more years than I wanted to know this or own it to become solid in myself so that I could go, no, like this isn't working. And I'm trying to be as gentle as possible. Or, the other way too is just being positive. We're not positive enough. Let's reward people. Let's be a positive. Let's pat them on the back. Let's not be negative Nellies all the time, right? So it's knowing our own truth. Now, see, I forgot the second one.
Failure.
Failure. Thank you. So I think
I got you.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. I'm so glad I said it. So going way back to Jenny about socialization, at least in our culture, we can't speak for every culture, right? But at least the culture we grew up in and we know, failure is not discussed. We are not told in school, going back to your analogy, that F that we got on our science test, you might remember the rest of your life about, for example, maybe not personal experiencing anything about why more surface area on an ice cube allows it to melt faster. Cannot tell you anything else in the class besides that, but it's something because I didn't do well that you remember. So those failures are sometimes more important than the successes, right? Like I have incorporated so many lessons like you, Beth, in my life because I actually sucked ass on them. Like I completely botched it, face forward, failed, 10 out of 10, spectacular splash on it. But I took something away from it. And
I
that's
think
more valuable than winning.
I think that someone asked me once what the biggest failure was, and I said, I can honestly not think of a time in my life. I don't consider it a failure. And I don't know if this is just a mindset thing or whatever. As long as you walk away and you've learned something, is it a failure
That's a great
or
point.
is it a lesson learned? Because we can all learn our lessons. Like, okay, now we know we have to let toxic team members go. I learned the very hard way that you don't hire your friend to be your builder who ended up in jail. I mean, that's a whole story on its own. Oh, it was great. But embezzled, like, anyways, it was
So he
talk
was
like
the
I
full
said.
meal deal there. Like he
Oh,
was whole
I
hog
kn-
on his efforts.
I almost passed out once yelling at him on the phone because my blood pressure was so high. But anyways, regardless, right? Like these are the lessons that we learn. So was it a failure? I mean, we are where we are today. So can I ever say that any of those things were failures? No, I don't think that you can. I think you say, I learned this lesson. I'm going to do it differently now. It might still not be perfect. Like you were talking about learning who you are, Kelly.
Right.
That's always a work in progress because who I am today as a 48-year-old mother of three, business owner for however many years we figured out at the beginning is not the same person that I was when we started the business when I was 30. It's not the same person that I will be in 10, 20 years. So that journey is a constant learning, but you have to be willing to be open to it and to learn and to put the time and effort into learning, I guess. And
Yeah.
because learning is really like what helps us grow
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But yeah, I hate the word failure because you're gonna screw up 100%, 100%. You're gonna
100,000%. And you're going to screw up more than you're going to succeed.
And if you think you haven't screwed up, if you think you haven't failed, then you really need to look at it because you just don't even know. And that's a whole nother problem. But everybody fails. Everybody fails. In every aspect, you fail as a parent, you fail as a child, you fail as a sibling, you fail as a spouse, you fail as a business owner, you fail as an employee. I don't care where you're at in your life, you're going to fail.
But that's a
And
judgment, though, too. Going back to it, you're judging it was a failure.
judging it,
Well, you're calling it a failure. You're
oh,
making the judgment
that it's a
that
failure, correct,
this thing that didn't go well
is a
was a
failure.
failure. That somebody labeled that
Right.
as a
That's what I'm saying.
failure. Yeah,
is it
don't
even
label
really
it.
a failure? Is it a failure?
So
And if
why
you're,
label it that way?
It's like a mindset thing,
it
right?
is.
Like
Yeah.
I think it's how you look at it. And I think we have been trained from a young age that there are rubrics of what's considered success and what's considered failure. And I think one of the things that you have to do if you're going to do something like start a business is try to reframe those rubrics because I think the traditional definition of failure is wrong and I don't like it either. And I think it
Great.
has a negative connotation. And one of the very famous scientists, it might have been Thomas Edison. I'm gonna butcher it, and someone's probably gonna be like, she said the wrong person. But one of them said something like, whenever I perform an experiment and it doesn't work, it's not that I failed, it's that I found another way that doesn't work. And
That was
it's
Thomas
something,
Edison.
was it?
Nice job.
Yes, I got it
Yes.
right.
You got it.
But
Nailed
I
it.
like I that has always stuck with me, the premise of that quote, because I think that is often a problem that we have is that when something doesn't go right, we get in our heads that we failed, but it's just that you need to maybe pivot or look at it a different way or try again. And that there's nothing in life that's worth doing that's going to be easy. And that means that you have to try again. You have to look at it from another angle. You have to, assess, evaluate what went right and what went wrong, and then do it differently. And just do that on repeat until the end of time. And that's
Forever
You don't
and ever and
and that's
ever.
basically
ever and
life.
ever. And we've lost our curiosity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I was thinking when these images were going through my head, Beth, while you were talking, because I'm an image visual type of girl, of just how we got stamped out of our creativity. And I've been following a lot of things like on Instagram and stuff, because as my kids are getting older now, I'm thinking, well, so I don't want grandbabies right away, but when we do, we're going to do it different. Right. So I'm starting my research now, because speaking of failure, there are some things I maybe would have done a little bit different in the parent role but you survived, you got them fed, you got them clothed and out the door, right? So it's a
They
win.
have to have something to talk to the therapist about.
Right?
Like
Exactly.
the whole idea is it just better be something different than what you talk to the therapist about because of your parents. That's
Right,
it.
exactly. Like you try to improve every generation,
Right.
right? But one of the things I see, and I'm trying to encourage everybody out there starting a business or running a business, a couple of things. One, do not be hesitant just to try. I mean, Beth started her business with a stethoscope and her
Nothing.
knowledge and
Like
her
nothing.
compassion.
I
And a
cannot
kitchen and a
emphasize
kitchen table.
enough. I had nothing.
But you had the will and the gumption to say, fuck it, I'm just going to go do it.
Yes.
Right? It was the same for me. Everybody's like, the internet's not going to stay. Right? And it's not going to become a thing. Right? So you need to stop this dream of having a business on the internet and go work in a cubicle like a good little girl with a few pats on the head. And I'm like, no, this is like, no, some adult language came after that. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do this, right? With one book and a computer. Jenny, you had a tarp and not,
Fleece. It was the fleece on a folding table.
yes, but then you also had a hole in the wall with
Oh
the
yeah,
tarp.
the tarp. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I had
Yeah, and the
Tyvek's.
answering machine, because this was pre-voicemail on the
Oh, for sure.
phone. Right? So you had the little button that you push, and you were pretty excited about that. I might
Yeah.
add for everybody who was born after that time period, it was a very exciting moment to have, to have a machine to record.
Like, and you had the blinking light that told you there was a message, and you were like, "Ooh, somebody called."
I know it's very exciting because
Oh,
before that, you had to wait until the phone rang and hope you intersected your timelines in the right way.
right,
Right?
right.
Like you made it. So first of all, take that step. We're here to tell you, take the step. Just do it, and do it in a way it doesn't, you don't, we're pretty strong personality females, so we're just going to go and do it and nobody's going to say otherwise. But take the step that matters to you in a way that works for you, because there's no one size doesn't fit all. It just doesn't. So you got to just do the step for you, but do the step. Just freaking get out there and try it. Right? First of all, that's number one. Number two, be creative. We've had creativity stamped out of us. And like Beth said, you may not make it, plan A, plan B. I was out, as you ladies know, listening to Lindsay Sterling with my uncle, and he fanboys over her like there's no business. So that means we get to go talk to her and do VIP Q&A. And it was interesting. Somebody said, did you ever want to give up? So, thinking about this performer, she's never signed on to a major label. She just started. She goes, I had a plan A, and then I had a plan B, and then I had a plan C. And she goes, at plan W, my career took off, and I was almost ready to give up. And she goes, but I had to go through all those plans to get there. And there were a lot of little girls who played violin in the little audience. You could just see their eyes soak it in that, keep trying. Plan A doesn't work. Great.
It's almost a guarantee plan A will not work.
Will not work. Yeah.
Ever. No part of it. You're gonna pivot. So it's like that. What was that from Friends? Pivot. Like that
on the steps. Pivot.
That's all. That's going to be your whole life. If you start a business, just be ready to pivot. You cannot be so rigid and say this is the only way, because plan A 100% will not work.
No. And so much success comes in those moments where you're like, I'm going to try just one more time. Because, you're going to fail until you get it right. So for people who, it's like the whole mindset thing again. Like, if you are so focused on the failure, then you're never going to succeed. You have to be focused on the end game and just keep trying different ways until you get there. And like, I feel like the reason we're focusing a lot on this is because I think the thing that holds people back from trying to start their own business is the thought of failure. And I think we get so in our own heads about what failure looks like and what it means. And if you don't succeed immediately, you're a failure. And I just feel like we're here to tell you that is just not true. If you fail, it means you just haven't found the way yet, not that there isn't a way. And you're only going to find the way if you keep trying.
And part of your failure might have a little thing that you say, oh, let me build on this one little piece that might kind of have worked. And now we're going to branch out, right? Like, okay, Beth had a stethoscope. Guess what? She still has a stethoscope. That part worked.
And her brain and her gumption.
And all these other things. But there are some pieces that have to work. But it's the fear. It's the fear. It's a fear of failure. It's a fear of, our friend Phil has talked about this, that you spiral down and pretty soon you think, well, what if I'm just living out of my car with my 27 birds? Well, what if you're not? What if you have 2 cars and your 27 birds have their own little aviary?
Yeah, in the trunk of the minivan. But you can make it work.
In the trunk. or in your ginormous house. But instead of what ifing negatively, try what ifing positively.
Yeah.
What if this works? What if we take it from my friend and I, doing an enema on our kitchen table to over 50 team members? What if?
What if? Well, with that, we're going to end today. It's always a pleasure, ladies, to have conversations with you, because we never know where we're going to go. But we're going to wish you adieu. Come like, share, and follow us on all the appropriate social media, and we will be in an inbox near you soon.
And just remember, you can do it.
Take a chance.
Make it happen.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Shining a Light on Small Business.